I'm going to start this off by asking a question, which is, I think for critical thinking, you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And for this one right now, you have to put yourself into the mindset of being darn tough and think, what is darn tough's objective behind their product? I would say, to answer that question as best as I can, I would say it's their customer service, which is tied to their warranty, their reliability, and probably style. And unfortunately, most companies that sell garments, there's some level of fashion within them. But I'm trying to think of a counterexample, and I'm sure there is some for military that people are wearing potato sacks, rain gear maybe. But yeah, I think that's the other one. So, and I think you should be thinking in the mindset of what their goals are while I go over this. I'm going to start with the story. Not a great storyteller, but I have been using Darn Toughs for 10 years. I am the type of person that I've been able to be in air-conditioned room, 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and other people are totally barefoot, totally fine, and have their foot is totally comfortable, apparently, in the environment, whereas I am freezing. I'm wearing socks and I'm wearing shoes, or I have to be under a blanket. For years now, I have gotten to the point where I thought I had a Reynolds syndrome, where I thought I had really bad circulation to my feet and something was causing them to be cold all the time. That was the only explanation. I've used tobacco on and off, but it didn't matter, even if I'm not on using nicotine, because nicotine apparently screws with your blood cells transference across your body. So it didn't matter no matter what. I still had cold feet. I still needed to wear socks and shoes, or socks and clogs, socks and something. Because even with socks, I was not comfortable and I was not warm. And so that's when Darn Tough enters the picture. I go from wearing cotton, what were they, gold toe socks, to, and I would say, even thinking back, I think the gold toe socks might have been fairly decent. I bought the thick kind, and so those were cotton, or a cotton blend. And so then I moved to Darn Tough. I first used, before they had this extra cushion, their heaviest weight. They did have an extra cushion 10 plus years ago, but it was a knee high, and I'm usually not that type of person. So I bought the cushioned ones, the next one below, the hiker type models. And those ones were, there's really not much to see here, so I apologize for the video, or lack thereof. Those ones they were less cushioned than these ones, but not by too much. Those ones tended to be mid 60s to low 70s in terms of wool, about 20% nylon, 20 to 30, and then probably about 2 to 4% lycra. I usually say they add the nylon for stretch, or excuse me, they do the lycra for stretch. Lycra is called by other names too, elastane, spandex, similar type of stuff. It allows it to flex and fold back. Before then, people needed like a jersey type knit for that to flex back, if that makes sense. But that's what the lycra is for. Lycra is, I think, a polyurethane, so it probably gives stretch for about 10 years. It's the same material you'd see on like underpants, waistbands, something like that. So it gives it that flex to it. But the nylon, they say, is for durability, and then the rest for the wool is for warmth, insulation, yada yada, all the other stuff. The fact that it can stay warm when it's wet, whatever else the science says. So yeah, so I switched to the lower grade of the Darn Toughs, and I had clammy feet. They were still cold. Nothing was solving the problem. Eventually, they came out with this military version. I tried every single one. I tried all of their extra cushion models. These ones won out. They have another one that's lower on the ankle. They had two versions of that. The older one, ironically, had more wool, and I was okay with that one, but then they changed the model, and the newer one had less wool, and I was not okay with that one. I don't know what the deal is where people say wool is not durable enough on its own and it needs nylon. I think thick wool, like this one, is plenty tough. These ones I've had for, geez, I don't know, since before COVID. They've definitely had their use, and they've got plenty more to go. They're not, I mean, obviously you've got pilling here. You've got some stray hairs from who knows who. But, yeah, there's not a lot in that fiber that's worn through. So, yep. Can't complain. I'm not walking around, as I kind of explained, I'm not really walking around without shoes too much where I'm causing abrasion on the socks. I usually try to wear something so that I can preserve them as long as possible and let them do what they're supposed to do. But anyways, these ones are the ones that won out. These are the military version of, that's actually the model number right there. The military version of the extra cushion. I can't remember exactly. I think these are 80% wool. So the rest is, I think, maybe 18% nylon and then 2% lycra, spandex, elastane. So these are a lower spandex type model. But alas, these were warmer than every other Darn Tough I've tried. But my foot's still freezing. I can't sit in a cold environment, even if I have footwear that is meant to function in cold conditions. Well, the only one I found that was that I could use was EVA boots, what I'm wearing now. Just basically the Crocs material is EVA, and that's because EVA is, I don't know what the word is. I want to say it's fire retardant, but it's basically the heat or lack thereof does not necessarily translate to the other side. So it's an insulator, essentially. Excuse me. So, yeah, my foot is just always cold in conditions that are not that cold. So I have no idea why. Eventually, I could not give these up, though, because I'm a fickler for durability and the warranty. They have a warranty that says, I think it technically translates to, it's supposed to be a warranty that if you're satisfied with the sock, i.e. I am, because it's lasted 6, 7, 8+ years, and still it does not look like it's, other than the pilling, there's not a lot of wear through in the spots that you would think that there'd be wear through. So I'm totally satisfied. I don't, just so you know, I think people are mistranslating the warranty. I think if you're satisfied, you're basically supposed to buy a new one. I mean, come on. Like, this is the same problem that the other companies ran to, like LL Bean, where they stopped using the warranty because people would go to Goodwill, pay for $1 for something that costs $300, and then send it to LL Bean and say, give me a new one. I want this warranted. I'm not satisfied. So anyway, that's the difference between a lifetime and satisfaction. A lifetime warranty is one where if you've worn it the lifetime of the product, you should be fine. Now, I do think Darn Toughs is still a satisfaction warranty, but anyways, people I think are kind of abusing it. But they are expensive socks, so I could counter argue with myself why people do use the warranty, because these now I believe cost $32 for a pair of socks, which is sort of crazy, but considering how long they've lasted, I don't know. They've accomplished their goal of being durable, but also having a good warranty system if and when there's a problem with them. So But anyways, yeah, I still have cold feet. I have no idea why. They don't have a higher end model. If they did, if they had if they had the Alaska cushion, I probably would have switched to that and just kept trying with Darn Tough because I could not leave the brand. Uh, I would not try the alternatives for something that was inferior in my eyes. This is what every time I went online, this is what everybody recommends. I recommend Darn Tough. So I'm going with the internet's opinion, going with Reddit's opinion, no matter what they say. So I started to think it can't be the socks problem, it's my problem. I have Reynolds syndrome, or I'm just doing something wrong with my boots. Well, I tried a bunch of different boots, and once again, most of them weren't really functioning in their condition. I even tried minimalist shoes. I've tried tons and tons of minimalist shoes. I just thought maybe if I flex my foot more in a pair of shoes and do more walking in them, something that doesn't allows my foot to move as it's supposed to. Fortunately, this is just what I have on hand. That's flexing up and down. My foot muscles and the blood circulation will improve there, and I'll have a warmer foot. None of it didn't work. Again, I was just convinced that I had Reynolds syndrome. I was having some type of circulation problem. Even in summer, my feet were freezing. Unless they were in the sun or something like that. That would be the exception. So a few things changed. I read online about how boots, people are over tightening. They often over tighten the laces, and it creates a problem where it cuts off circulation. It seems like a lot of your veins are, in the front of the top of your foot, and even a micro form of constriction can cause the blood to not circulate as well. But once again, I'm thinking that it's something with boots. I even upsize with boots to try to find other, what the bottom of this is, what I can do to improve it. And then eventually I even buy toe spreaders. I don't buy them because, I want monkey feet or whatever. I just did it because I thought maybe something was wrong with my circulation. I think I was even looking at plantar fasciitis or something, and I even remember a video was talking about your big toe. Just going to use my thumb as a demonstration here. Naturally your foot is supposed to be straight, right? But when we're wearing footwear, a lot of times they're not foot shaped at all. So they get kind of squeezed in like that, right? And it mentioned something about, with the big toe at least, that even just a little bit inward pushed, the circulation gets cut off along one of these joints. And then you get cold feet. Or I guess in my case, it was mostly cold toes. So I was like, that's interesting. So that's why I got the toe spreaders, because I thought, well, maybe if I can straighten my big toe and some of the other ones, I guess my pinky was the other one, maybe they'll get circulation again and I won't have this issue. Couldn't be the socks. Well, it did work. It did work. But then when I took the toe spreaders off, it didn't work. So I was like, okay, well, then I definitely have some circulation type of problem going on here. But I wore the toe spreaders on and off for a year. I still use them to try and fix some type of an issue, because I do think that your foot is supposed to be like a triangle. Here's one side of the ball of the foot, here's the other side of the ball of the foot, and then your heel's in the back, so they kind of connect like that. And that's supposed to be your balance, your heel to the balls of your feet. So you kind of do want the toes more straight to kind of create balance on the ground, if that makes sense. And so if your toes are crushed inward, it screws up that triangle, and you can't push down on this part or that part, right? So I'm using the toe spreaders on and off. And then I even, since it's still not working when they're off, at least not as well, I go to Darn Tough and I buy the next size up. Again, now I've bought every model of their extra cushion, every one below the extra cushion, because they're about 60% wool. They're freezing my foot and it's clammy. I mean, it's really uncomfortable. And all I can wear is the extra cushion ones. And that's still not unbearable to me. I even upsize. I'm a 10 US men. This is a large. And so this is my size. But the extra large, I found out they're not any wider. They're just longer. So I'd wear them and it was like I was just wearing a big tube on my foot. But it wasn't providing any different. I even tried doing two socks, but I found out using a sock over the other sock ended up creating an issue definitely with circulation. There was too much compression on my foot. The only one I found that did work was basically something that was felt more like a woven, something that was really big and wide. And now I need a very big shoe for this to fit. This is just a neoprene type of socklet. Now your foot definitely sweats in here, but it still maintains warmth with the neoprene. So, but every other time of using double layers, it does not. It makes it worse. It's literally freezing. And then I find out I'm still holding on to my loyalty. So I even then go to Darn Tough has an alternative. I guess somebody found it and got Darn Tough to make their socks called wide open. I don't think it's open wide. I think it's wide open socks. Now it's obvious that they're just Darn Tough, but I guess maybe it's a different owner. I don't know. I was praying to God that they would come out with a wide version of the Darn Toughs. Alas, unfortunately, I sent Darn Toughs emails. This has been going on years now. I sent Darn Toughs emails. I sent open wide emails, and I said, please make either a heavy cushion or an extra cushion sock, so that I can just see if this maybe helps the warmth issue. Unfortunately, they still have yet to do it today. I'm not sure if open wide is more focused on fashion and I don't know, maybe fat people. I'm just gonna say it because I'm not really sure. Oh, I've already shot myself in the foot here, figuratively, but I just don't know what their audience is. They release new socks, and sometimes they just seem like they're releasing new styles because they're not making a heavy cushion or an extra cushion, but they're still releasing new styles. So I don't know what the deal is, but they don't really seem like they're making outdoor socks that are meant for work in hard conditions and inclement weather. So unfortunately, and they don't have the best reviews either. So I'd never bought open white socks. I was like, well, screw it. They look like dress socks. No, I don't want dress socks. I want work socks. So alas, eventually, I'm waiting for open wide to eventually release a model. It's been probably 2-3 years of me intermittently sending or including using different email addresses to send these emails. And I still get nothing. The way the extra wide, or wide opens work, I think, though, is that they just add more lycra to the socks to give them more stretch so that they can fit bigger apparatuses. So anyways, eventually something clicks and I'm like, well, I was thinking, I think I ran into a sock that was styled like, this is grandma's sock that she knitted by hand, probably in Mongolia. That, 0.001% of Mongolian, and by that ancient ancestral Mongolian sock weaver. And she's made the old-fashioned type of socks, the socks that are 100% wool. And so I didn't buy them because they were about $30. And again, I was kind of cheap. And even though Darn Toughs are $32, they have the reputation and they have the warranty. So I didn't buy them, but I did eventually look at other socks. It broke my habit. And I found out, hey, maybe there's other grandma socks out there Eventually, what the grandma socks I was looking for were, well, maybe it's the Canadian socks. And I was thinking, well, what's the difference? Why could they be better than Darn Toughs? Darn Toughs, they're making wool socks. They've been making them forever. There can't be that much difference. They're on the outside, they have this pattern to them, this kind of jersey type knit too. So it's not all just the lycra. And then inside they have this, almost all their models have this like, they're kind of like nubs. I guess it's like a terry cloth. So you can maybe see on the edge there, the frame. There we go. Yep, all that nasty sock stuff. So, yeah, I thought that was for warmth and yada, 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 whatever. So I started looking at the Canadian socks because I figured, well, Canada's freezing. They must know something that Darn Tough doesn't, even though Darn Tough's in Vermont, which is cold. And so I bought socks from Canada. And as you can see, probably the first thing, and unfortunately, these are probably a little bit too big for me, and I'm going to say, so these are JB Fields. And I would say, for some reason, a few of the JB Fields models are oversized. So you might consider sizing down. Some of them are almost, seems like they're made to either be a secondary sock, an outer sock, or they're just oversized for whatever reason. So definitely if you buy JB Fields, consider sizing down no matter what. This is their military sock. It is not their thickest sock. I have tried their thickest sock. These ones are old-fashioned, I guess, because the way that it holds around your leg is you just fold it like that. And when you create that cuff, it, as you can see, it compresses a little bit more and holds it firm against your leg. So here you can see that same jersey deal. Now the interesting thing about this sock in particular, and I'm 90% certain on this, that there is no lycra in here. There is no spandex, there's no elastane. And as I mentioned before, that material is polyurethane. Polyurethane was made in the 20th century. So if there's a difference between grandma and the Industrial Revolution era, the post era, is it's that. And so I don't know what the deal is. I'm actually going to bring out the weight to show you the revelation. So, all right. How are we holding a gram of nothing? Oh shit. Oh dear. Is that these are heavy. That's what I'm going to illustrate here. Boink. So these are 4.7 ounces for both of these socks. Let's translate that to the rest of the world measurements. That's 132 grams. God bless this light for being in the way. All right, these ones, these military ones, are 102 grams. And 3.6 ounces. So these weigh less than those. And alas, these are the first socks I've ever worn that I did not need to wear shoes or slippers or anything else on in an air-conditioned room. I was like, what the hell? How could these socks that are way less seem less durable than Darn Tough be warmer? In fact, these don't even have a ton of wool in them. I think these are only 50% wool. And I for years thought the more wool, the better. That must be the magic, right? Nope, that wasn't it. These are, I think, 50, gosh, I'm probably getting this wrong. It's probably 60% wool, 40% nylon. It's somewhere between 50 to 70% wool, but it's way less than these other ones because these other ones are 80. So, but yeah, no, these were warmer. And so you might have already figured it out based on how I told this extremely long, boring story. But I think the thing is these are not constricted in any way, shape, or form. There's no lycra in here. There's no restriction. I'm not having anything on the top here that's pushing down on my blood vessels that's constricting the blood flow. And neither is there any on this thing too. Now the consequence of it is the legs can fall down. That's absolutely true, especially if I don't cuff them, right? Now, and it does make another part too. So if you have like a mid-calf sock, you're kind of screwed because you have a hump, right? So like, let's assume that this is the middle of the calf. It's just going to want to slide down like that throughout the day because the bump of your muscle is going to be pushing it down. So you kind of want to roll these down so that they're not over your calf, and then they'll just stay on the upper part of your ankle just fine for the most part. Or what you can do also is tuck them into your pants or your long johns. So that works too. But yeah, so this old-fashioned tech was way warmer. In fact, I'm wearing socks, or not wearing socks, I'm wearing shoes, even shoes that are meant to be breathable, and I'm sweating quite a bit. Fortunately, because there's wool in here, it wasn't like uncomfortable type of water bogged down with sweat, but I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that after all this time, I don't think it was Ronaldo syndrome. I think I was just constricting my blood vessels. And with these, what I was noticing was when I would get off and take off my old pair of socks and jump in the shower, the bottom of my calf where these would sit was kind of create a mark around the bottom because it was pushed that skin in and, left a mark that was there for about 30 minutes or whatever, right? So it was creating restriction there. And I definitely know that the top here was creating restriction as well. They just weren't wide enough. And in fact, I was even curious because as I was trying barefoot shoes, which are wider, at the toe box, that it wasn't the shoe that was pushing my toes in. It was the socks that was pushing my toes in. So after all this time, I realized, I was like, wow, this fantasy I had about this being the best warm cold weather sock was broken. Like, it was totally shattered. Now the thing is, I don't think it's darn tough. I think that for whatever reason that fashion has gone into a realm that kind of like you saw it with all clothes. You saw it with pants. You saw it with dress shirts. You saw it with everything. They have started to put elastic, spandex, the other lycra, into everything. They put it in the pants. They'll sell like with the Dickies that I use. They have the Dickies that are the normal old-fashioned kind where it's just a woven fabric of polyester and cotton. And then they'll have the version that's got elastic put into it. And they'll say, wait, it's more flexible. You should use this version. They've got dress shirts. And part of the reason I think that it sells is not just because it seems more comfortable, but you can make a slimmer version of it. And so it looks more form-fitting to your body. And I think that's kind of what led to this trend of really tight clothes that happened in the late 2000s to the at least early to mid 2010s. So they put elastic in everything. They made everything smaller and slimmer. And just because I guess it was more flattering to people's figure, and then ran with it. And unfortunately, I think this is a consequence of it. I think that all these socks, these have fashioned themselves to be the sports fit, right? The type that stays on, doesn't move around, it doesn't cause blisters, it hugs onto your leg, you don't have to adjust it, yada, yada, yada. But unfortunately, there's a consequence to it that I don't think has been illustrated in any way, shape, or form. And unfortunately, because of that, I think Darn Tough is a byproduct of it, because Darn Tough does not make a sock like this that I've seen. Every Darn Tough sock I've seen, now I could be mistaken because they now offer about 5,000 versions. Because again, I think that they're trying to offer them for style too, and there's nothing wrong with that because most companies do it. But I don't think they have a version that's just loose, wide, and does not have lycra in it, right? So yeah, that's what I've learned, and so it breaks my heart to think about getting rid of these Darn Tough socks. And I've probably tested 24 pairs of darn tough socks over the last 15 plus years to find something that worked. And alas, I've come up empty handed. These are really the last ones I'm still using, but I don't think I'll keep using these because the detriments outweigh the benefits for me. I am definitely a stickler for something that's durable. And do I think these are more durable than these? Absolutely. I don't think these JB Fields will last as long. I've only been using these for 6 months, maybe. And there's definitely some wear on them. There's definitely wool's definitely not clinging on as well as the darn toughs. I mean, the darn toughs holding on real tight, so they accomplished their goal of being darn tough. Can't fault them for that. But I think darn tough really needs to. They need to look at the Canadian companies, because when I started looking, there's I don't know, there's at least 8 to 10 Canadian companies, and they're all kind of similar to this. They have models with lycra now because that seems like what people want. But they also have versions that are the old-fashioned style where it's just wool or it's just wool and nylon. And I think this is the way to go. If you want warmth, if you want insulation, if you want blood circulation, you want a sock like this, and not to bother with the fact that it probably does look less stylish. In fact, I know it does. So I don't even need the toe spreaders. These aren't pushing my toes in at all. And it's funny because for the type of barefoot type of people that want their foot to be as natural as possible, what are they doing? They're not going for these socks. They're going for the toe socks, which there's nothing wrong with that, but those toe socks also are using tons of lycra to create an elastic type fit. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, unless it's not too much constriction around the ankle. But they've continued to use the same thing that created problems with these socks, right? Whereas the way to go is the old fashioned, just get the materials that work. So I've dispelled the thing that I need a bajillion% wool around my foot for it to be warm. And it's kind of created a different way of me looking at socks and the inner layer of your boot. In terms of, if I'm using something like this, it's just a big old thick piece of EVA. Something like this is going to sweat a ton inside because there's absolutely no breathability in there other than through this top part here, right? So I need something that's got at least a little bit of wool so that it stays warm when it's wet and it wicks away the sweat, but also might want something that dries out a little bit faster, because I don't want the sock to just submerge in wet. So I might mix it with something with a little bit more nylon or acrylic in it. So it's kind of liberating in a way, because I can look at getting something else other than, holy God, my icicles are freezing to death, and I can't tell you what the issue is. So that's exciting for me, because now I've been able to try different insoles, different socks, because I really think that the main part of a boot is to protect you from the outside world, but you need the inside, basically the insole and the sock, to protect from what happens on the inside, which is you're sweating, you getting cold from your sweat, being able to wick away the sweat to the outside, and then maybe the boot picks it up by somehow, whether the leather absorbs it for the day or goes through the breathe holes or whatever. So yeah, it's totally changed my mind on not looking at boots as being a one size fits all solution for a boot, for example. A boot that has insulation, all this crap in it that you can't change. Whereas now I can, I'll just use this as an example. So these are the Belleville C320. This is the kind of a jungle boot. It's meant to get wet, but it's also meant to dry out fairly quick. These are breathe holes here. in theory, when you're stepping, it's supposed to push out that humid, wet air and then dry it out from the inside. So, and there's being bogged and then there's being comfortably wet. Whereas if you're using something like the foam boots I just showed, that I'm not going to be able to fit in here, or Gore-Tex boots, well, your foot's just going to get bogged down at some point. You're going to be frozen solid. So you do want something that's going to allow some way of moving liquid out. And so the fact that I'm not just chasing this one thing that didn't work, I now have this other basically Lego piece that I can work with. And since I don't have to wear such a thick sock, I can use something like a thicker insole, and something like this will absorb quite a bit of sweat. It's just a big thick wool insole. Or if I want more comfort, I can use a thicker insole. I'm not so stuck to this because I couldn't just keep upsizing boots for thicker amounts of socks to get a good fit, or else the footwear would just get too sloppy. So yeah, this changed the whole way I'm looking at footwear now, and I'm definitely looking at more of what JB Fields offers to see what works best. I will say I did try their I think it's called their Icelandic -40 below socks, and I could just say in short, those are the warmest socks I've ever used in my life. I've never had socks that I was thinking, maybe this is too warm for the conditions I'm wearing these in. You know, I could wear a big, thick pair of boots and they'd be too warm, but I've never had that with socks. And I would basically be waterlogged inside. It was still warm, but I was wondering, and I'm like sweating buckets into this thing, just to, just throughout the day. So, I will be trying other JP Field socks in the future. I'm going to try one that mixes the wool with acrylic and nylon just to see if I can get a good blend of something that's durable as well as breathable, that insulates and does all the things I'm looking for it. Just because I'm a little bit concerned about the durability of this one. Now, I will say before, I have an older video. Before the Darn Toughs, I used to wear, oh gosh, Bass Pro Shops used to have lifetime guarantee socks. So they had a similar guarantee to Darn Tough. And you would wear, those ones only cost about 10 to 12 bucks. Unfortunately, they stopped doing it in I want to say 14, but maybe it was a little bit after that. They stopped offering that, but those were a similar deal. They were actually lighter weight than the Darn Toughs, but they were warmer. And for whatever reason, when they stopped doing that, I just switched over to Darn Toughs permanently. So, yeah, I'm not even giving a solid recommendation to JB Fields. Again, I'm worried about this military boot not being super durable. This one was, I think, 15 bucks, so it was at least half of what Darn Tough was. There's also, if you're looking for alternatives, there's Costco socks that are wool, but the Costco ones, the similar deal, they're lycra. I would consider seeing with the Costco socks if you could upsize with them, just because I had the same constricted fit with those, that they were probably the best value. So, although I will recommend the 1940, the -40 Icelandic wool socks. If you're wanting warmth, those things kick ass like nothing else. But there's, like I said, there's 6 to 8, maybe more Canadian wool sock companies up north here. So I would highly recommend looking up those and experimenting around if you have cold feet or Darn Tough's not doing it for you. If you want a lighter weight sock, one that insulates better or wicks moisture or what have you, I would consider that. Going back to the beginning of this video, if the thing I will say about Darn Tough is, once again, if you're looking for a sock that's durable, reliable, has a good warranty, yeah, Darn Tough's the best. I don't think you can beat it. But for function, I think they've lost. I think they've lost pretty handedly, and if Darn Tough's watching this, I would highly recommend you make grandma's sock uh, and not have socks that are 100% lycra. Have a sock that's a wider fit, that's meant to be looser, that's meant to hold up based on a cuff or something along those lines, like the ones in the olden days did. Because this, what when I got off this lycra bandwagon, it was the results were amazing. I think that covers it.